you haven't joined us for a fireside chat in the past, we started these about 10 years ago, and the whole idea was, instead of having formal panels, as festivals oftentimes do, is to have informal panels where filmmakers can exchange information with different filmmakers and also different company executives and different folks that are running companies. So today we're going to deal with alternative funding methods for indies. And before we get started, I'd really like to thank Film Riot for sponsoring this. And maybe you can take just a moment and tell us a little bit about what Film Riot does, and then we'll get going.
Sure. Film Riot is an application that we're just launching now. We're in beta mode, so the site is live, so we invite everybody to come to the site and be part of testing it for us. The idea is that it's a crowdfunding application that filmmakers can put all the information about their upcoming projects that they want to create and get input from their potential audience, including money. And they can raise their budget or a piece of their budget through Film Riot, and you're creating ambassadors for your film, essentially, because you've got these people who already they've participated by giving you a bit of cash, even if it's $10 or $50 or whatever. So now they're part of making films, so you're building that excitement with your audience even before you've necessarily written a script or anything like that. And then they can follow right through. There's blogging features and all that sort of thing, so you can upload cast photos, location photos, do a daily blog once you're in shooting, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate the sponsorship. And also, for those of you, just know, after we're done with the panel, they have T-shirts for everyone as well. So make sure to stick around. Why don't we go ahead and get started with Skiz? Maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Skiz. I'm here. I'm one of the Slamdance projectionists, and I'm on the jury. But when I'm not at Slamdance, for 10 years I ran a film festival called Micro Cinefest, which was dedicated to very low-budget films with offbeat subject matter. And we stopped doing the festival, but the organization still exists and does events throughout the year, but doesn't do the annual festival. And I'm also a filmmaker, and I make very low-budget, offbeat films.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I'm Amy Dotson, and I work for IFP, which is the oldest nonprofit for filmmakers in the country. And I run the programming there, primarily the narrative programming, but I have a background in documentary as well. I was a programmer at Silver Docs for many years, and I am the lady of the panel.
I'm Brian Felsen. I'm with Disc Makers, a DVD replication company that provides full services for independent filmmakers. I'm also a filmmaker myself.
Hi, my name is Slava Rubin, and I'm a founder and chief of strategy and marketing for Indiegogo. It's an online social marketplace to connect filmmakers and fans to make more independent film happen. So filmmakers will get the tools for fundraising, promotion, and finding cast and crew. At the same time, the audience can connect directly with the filmmakers, the movies, or the causes they believe in.
My name is Nat Dinga, and I'm the producer of the film Fix that's playing at the festival this year.
Great, thanks, Nat. And by the way, as we're talking, feel free at any time at all to just ask a question or throw out another subject, because this is really about a dialogue between us. Just to get started, so with all the great stuff that you're doing, what are new ideas to fund for indies? How do we differ than, say, 3-4 years ago? For anyone?
Well, I feel like there's much more access because of the internet, of course. I mean, there's much more access to the people that really want to be involved with independent film and really love independent film, can actually, get hands-on and really, you can contact with the directors. I know my director has been extensively emailed, and that's how we basically made the film and built our crew, was by going out there and really having a lot of just people that were just interested in the film by going online and really wanting to be a part of the movie.
And did you use online to raise money?
We did, actually. We set up on his website when we were first getting started, we set up be an associate producer and, donate $1 to be an associate producer. If you actually watch our credits, we have 1 million associate producers in our movie, the end credits. It wasn't how we raised the bulk of the money, but it was a good way to get the seed money started, just to get moving and get the project going. So,
I think there's a really good example to really capture what's changing is Iraq for Sale. How many of you are familiar with the film? Robert Greenwald? All right. So it was about a $750,000 movie, and they were able to get $350,000 approximately of the money. And they needed $400,000 more, and they were tapped out. No more opportunity. And they found one guy, an angel, who said, okay, I'll give you $200,000 more, but you got to find the last 200. And Robert Greenwald and Jim Gilliam can't do it. They said, okay, we've made some films in the past. Let's try to tap our audience for this. So they sent out 4 emails over 9 days, and they got between like $250,000. So the Angel, this is all not-for-profit. They just gave money because of passion about Iraq. The Angel matched that money. They made the movie. Everybody got to be part of the process. So it's all about engaging the audience, and that's really what's the big difference.
And was it from all over the world, or was
all
it
over the world?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there was a little bit of focus in America about anti-Iraq, but really it was the world speaking out against Bush.
There's another one on the narrative side that I don't know how many of you are familiar with Swarm of Angels. Has anybody checked out that site? It's on the narrative side, and it's actually a British director, and he started very similar to what you're talking about at the script stage, so that people were actually kind of giving input in of like, this character sucks, or get rid of this B storyline. Really giving input from like the very beginning, so they felt like they were kind of helping nurture it along. So you had the people that were really interested in the script stage. You had people that were really kind of interested in the casting process, and they, to date, it's £1 million, and they're in phase 3 now, which is that kind of pre-production phase. So there's really, I definitely encourage you. Lance Weiler, who's another filmmaker that does a lot of alternative filmmaking and film fundraising, he has a blog called the Workbook Project. That if you want to find out what some of these are, just put it in and check it out. He has blogs and all sorts of spaces as well that kind of teach you, what's going on out there in the world.
Workbook is actually a resource on Indiegogo.
And there you have it.
Right. And for example, there's a well-known documentary filmmaker named Adrian Bellick who did a film years ago called Ganges Blues that got a lot of notoriety and everything. I was with him on a panel a few months ago, and what he said is what he does to raise money for his films is he has a mailing list, and what he'll do is these are people that are they love his films, are totally dedicated to him, so he'll actually send out a pre-sale to his mailing list, which he'll say, my new film is going to come out a year from now. You love my work. You're probably going to buy it. Why not buy it now? And I can use that as my production budget. So he has 5,000 people on his mailing list. If you multiply that times $20 a DVD, just start doing the math. And he's raising money for his new films by pre-selling DVDs to people that are going to buy his stuff anyways. So that's another strategy that it's not kind of brain surgery, but what he's done is he's just using the internet in a way to raise money from people that are already his user base, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, you raise a really good point. If you can use an Excel spreadsheet and email, it doesn't have to be as complicated, especially with the new technologies that are in place. It's almost like Cliff Notes of, you want to learn to blog? Well, it's X, Y, and Z, and this is how you do it, or uploading pictures or any of that. So, there's so many new technologies out there. Don't be intimidated for a second by them just because they're new and shiny and flashy. They're very easy to use. You guys can really speak to that.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that we're trying to do is make it real easy so you don't have to hire a web programmer. You don't have to know anything about e-commerce or whatever. You just fill out a bunch of forms, tell people the synopsis and all that sort of thing, and we guide you through the process of actually promoting your thing. I think that one of the things as well that's really exciting is that because of the openness of the internet, people are starting to get really sick of being shut out of their own culture, and so to actually have a chance of seeing how things are built and getting the inside scoop and being involved, paying in advance to say, I want to see this made. I don't want to have some executive tell me what I'm supposed to see and, fill the theaters with stuff that is a bunch of garbage. So people get to pick these little niche films on their own.
And Brian, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing that all this is very nifty, and I'm curious how it's going to math out. I think that a lot of the crowdsourcing and the getting the social networking together is going to be a great way to additionally raise money. I think that there are two things that really need to still be taken into account. One is the old school ways of raising money, which I can talk about if anybody wants to hear about. With the old school sort of stuff, Disc Makers works with a lot of very, very small filmmakers. We do really short run replication, and we also do a lot of bigger projects. And for like Maury Warshawski is a really good book on how to throw house parties for fundraising for your niches and for your for interested parties and funders, and all the protocols in doing one, so that way you can get it sponsored, do it cheap, and tell people in advance that, hey, we're here to raise money for this project, for this cause, and even if they can't come, they can RSVP and send you a check. and he's good to check out. And I also talked with one person we work with, this guy who's working with Rex Pickett, the Academy Award winning writer of Sideways. So his next project is being done by a guy named Scott Wells, but he got into production through a book by John Cones called 41 Ways to Finance Your Film. And he's got this sort of new thing which he does, which is, I mean, it's still old school, but what he does is he uses his friend's real estate as collateral for non-loss incentives for investors in order to get the first money in, so that way when the smart money comes in, he's sort of set up. And he says that it's harder if you live in like Los Angeles, because in LA everybody's trying to do something. He says a lot of the first-time directors films that are in like the $500,000 $1 million range, you know, they come from upper middle class or upper class families that are not living in LA who can tap into their own networks. But with the sort of crowdsourcing thing, tapping into a niche or tapping into a specific funding thing, like the guy who did the house parties, he made this movie called Made in LA about Chinese garment sweatshops in Los Angeles. So he was telling me that he just threw a lot of these things, but he also specifically applied for fundraising from interested niches. On the technological end, what's cool is that you can make a film much cheaper nowadays than you used to, and you can market it cheaper. In terms of making it cheaper, there's a director, Joe Swanberg, who's sort of like, they call his works like mumblecore, but he makes like 3 to 4 films a year like Fassbender used to, and he can just make them cheap and fast, and he can still get some distribution.
And he actually makes the money by doing website work. So you guys should check out some of his web work. He actually makes half of his income from that, which is, you know, another interesting thing to talk about.
And then you can save money on like certain state tax incentive programs. Certain states like New Mexico can give you like up to 25% of your budget back. Louisiana's really good. Other countries like Canada, Germany, France, and South Africa. And like the last kind of thing technologically is cool is there's this program called Antic that Lance Weiler, his partner, a friend of mine, is Stefan Avalos. He directed. They both directed The Last Broadcast, which is like considered like the first fully digital film. But they use this 3D program called Antic, which is very, very easy to use. And he taught it to himself like in a month, and he made a 3D commercial for it. You know, and with that, he's able to get a lot of funds and do that. So he can actually take a scene, make it, have something tangible to show his investors coming up.
And by the way, for those of you in the back, if you'd like to, there's a bunch of chairs up in the front if you'd like to have a seat. I want to comment on that. I think that it's an excellent point. And one of the ways to meet people, if you do live in LA, New York, Chicago, Miami, in a major center, one of the best ways to meet people outside of that is there's a ton of excellent regional festivals. For example, Sidewalk Moving Picture Festival, Birmingham, Alabama, Kansas City Filmmakers Jubilee, Kansas City, Missouri. These are smaller festivals. Bend Film in Oregon. I mean, these are not they're not the Berlin, Venice, Slamdance, but what they are is the type of people that come to those festivals are, in addition to filmmakers, it's upper middle class people, doctors, lawyers, accountants, real estate people, investment bankers, and they go there just because they're interested and they love film, and it's one of the best ways to meet people to get interested in your film. I mean, I'm always blown away that I'll go to a place like Birmingham, Alabama, and I'll meet more investors than I will in LA. I mean, in a second.
Yeah.
How many people are from New York and LA, just to get a gauge? So most people. How many people are not from New York and LA? Awesome. So that's a pretty good split. Okay.
You're hearing a lot of, there's a movie, $750,000. There's a movie, £1 million. You might be thinking to yourself, those are great successes, but that's not really the numbers that I'm thinking about. I'm looking smaller. This is my first movie. I just want to get started. So let me just give you a couple really quick examples of exactly maybe where you're at. There's like M. Strange, who, I don't know if anybody's heard of M. Strange, but he was able to build his entire audience, one clip at a time on YouTube, and before you know it, he was at Sundance by having his audience push him there. Then there's like Four-Eyed Monsters, and we have Brian Trills here, part of that team, but we have Four-Eyed Monsters, who they were able to make a movie totally awesome, and then they were able to get a special promotion where they get contributions $1 at a time back. Or there's just a college student who really liked flying, like private flying, so at Van Nuys Airport, he wanted to make a movie. Nobody was willing to talk to him. So he took some action into his own hands, and he made a little clip for 5 minutes. He then showed this clip to just all the people that actually fly around at Van Nuys Airport. They're like, this is great. We love this. We want to see a movie about this. He got 12 investors. He kept all the distribution rights to himself, and he sold 50,000 copies. So this is people that never made a movie. This is you guys, or maybe you're much more successful than that. So anybody can do it. And just a pathway, How many of you know Christopher Nolan, the director of Batman, right? Superstar now. So he didn't start with that, of course. He started with a movie called The Following. The Following was 11. Right, exactly. That's where I'm going with it. It all started here, $11,000, right? You can raise $11,000 on Film Riot, on Indiegogo, on Prosper, on whatever site you want to do it, by asking people for contributions, by peddling for money. You could get $11,000. You then get Memento to happen next. You then get Insomnia. You then become Batman, right? So you can start at Slamdance, and you can start online.
So, and Skiz, what have you seen?
What have I seen?
Like in terms of ways of raising money for indies?
Yeah, my experience is mostly with much smaller budgets,
Yeah.
but the 11,000 and under. But usually it's you spend your own money until you run out of it, then you find ways to raise what you need. And there's always medical experiments, and there's always actually advice I give people is everybody who's out here this week, just start collecting as much swag as you can, but don't damage it. Put it in a box, take it home, put it in the attic, because you never know. One of those pieces of swag that you get might be this year's Christopher Nolan, and 5 years from now, that piece of swag, you can put that on eBay, and you can fund a ton of videos.
There's a couple of really neat technologies as well that people might not know of that gives great opportunities. One is there's a company called Create Space, which is owned by Amazon. They do one-offs of a whole bunch of different products. That means you don't have to have an inventory. So if you want to offer to one of your supporters a bound copy of a script so they can put it on their bookshelf, one-off. All you do is upload the file, they print it out, one book, and it's not expensive. So you can actually offer these things that you don't really even think of, because in the past you'd have to spend thousands to print however many hundreds in order to make it worthwhile. Same with DVD on demand. T-shirts on demand, so one-offs on T-shirts, one-offs on any other type of printed product. It's no longer the case that you have to inventory a lot of these things, so you can start to offer them early on and use that as a fundraising tool as well.
Anybody a documentary?
CreateSpace.com.
Anybody a documentary filmmaker in here? Awesome. Okay. So you guys are aware also of 501c3s? Okay, so 501c3s are a great thing for documentary filmmakers and short filmmakers and experimental filmmakers to know about. There are groups all over the country. IFP is one of them, Austin Film Society, in Oklahoma, the Dead Center Film Festival. That's just a couple. And what they do is they act as your nonprofit, and they come on as your sponsor. And from that point on, any donation that people give to your film is tax deductible. So especially when you're hitting up the rich doctors and the people that you're meeting at these festivals, it's a wonderful incentive for them because they're looking for a tax break. So it's the same as giving to Amway. It's the same as giving to Amnesty International. And what that does for you guys is it gives them even more incentive. They love it, and then they maybe want to give a little more because they know that that's all going to come back on their taxes. So
what's the process? For example, if I wanted to take advantage of something like that, how would I get involved with IFP, the Independent Feature Project? What type? Do you take any of the money? How does that work?
That's a really good point. There's two things you should consider when you're looking to figure out whether you want to go that route. One is what kind of cut the company or the entity is taking. It's usually anywhere from 4 to 8%, which can be a lot of your budget. But keeping in mind that this is an incentive and this is a good way to kind of keep track of your money. The second is also picking some place where either you or your director or somebody you have some tie to. I love the Dead Center Film Festival. They're doing some amazing work, but unless you live in the middle of the country, it's probably not the best bet for you. But IFP, for example, if you live in New York or if you live, New Jersey, Philadelphia, that's a great resource because then you're also involved in that particular group. And they are also doing things, programming and other things year-round that, again, are ways either to network with executives and people in the business or other filmmakers so that you can start to kind of build that community in the old school way, like physically being in the same place, talking to people and finding out, what they're doing, what they're up to.
The idea is get creative. So there's a movie, I can't remember the exact name of it, but in England that they needed $1 million for their production budget, and they happened to have some connections with some folks in Italy. So the Jeans company, they wanted to get product placement in the movie, so they were willing to give them the full $1 million production budget if all the clothing was from this company. Obviously, you won't find all these companies that easily, but that's just getting creative. Another one, just that you might find interesting, somebody actually sold frames. They turned it into stills. Every frame from the movie, they turned them into stills. They sold them for $100 a still that they signed. So they funded their movie by selling pictures of the stills. Just creative.
Like, where's your market for that if you're a first-time filmmaker? Who's going to buy your stills?
I mean,
talk to a photographer friend that's a little more established, or talk to a photographer friend that can talk to a photographer friend that can find somebody established. It's the same with your music. It's the same with anything. Get creative is the best motto that I can. Yeah.
I mean, I know from experience that when I did my movie, we start with our website. When we put all of our images up, we put up some of the documentary footage that was going to be the basis of our film. We actually, I mean, you got to look at it as parts of your movie. You know, we got our color correction from HD Pictures and Post. They found us, actually, from our website and said, we want to invest in this. You guys seem like a good company to be a part of. And also, I mean, you just look at the little ways to just shave stuff off. We use the Panasonic HVX 200. That camera is a lifesaver for an independent filmmaker because it's cheap. It's only like $6,000, with like $10,000 with all the toys for it. And then you're shooting onto memory cards. So you're just downloading directly into your computer as you're shooting. You don't need any film. There's no processing. There's no problems with anything like that. And when, like, for instance, when we were finished with production of our movie, half of it was edited because we could just go right in there and just skip the entire process of, you know, just developing anything like that. Just went straight into our computers, and we were editing the next day after we shot. And I mean, it's really just important just to, like, when you look at your film, break down everything that you can, like, you know, just look at everything and see who you think can sponsor you and who'd be interested in helping you with just the different elements of your movie. You can use that to just, you know, to sell it and make it work out.
Yeah, and by the way, on Wednesday we're going to have a panel here that focuses on the Panasonic HVX 200 and specifically to talk about how a camera like this can help an independent filmmaker get excellent quality and also work within a very low budget. I had a question for all of you. So I put up a web presence to start getting my film going, to start developing. How do I get people to go to it? I mean, MySpace, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. How do I build interest? I mean, how do you do it?
I mean, you say blah, blah, blah. That's actually years ago, blah, blah, blah cost a lot of money.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah meant hiring somebody to build that for them. Blah, blah, blah meant, how do I do this now for myself? When really today, you do have all these things called widgets, right, which you could have as bumper stickers that you could take code and put it onto a blog, which you can get from Indiegogo. Or you can use the Facebook, right, set up a group. Or you can use MySpace, right, or you can use your own email list. Don't, stop from thinking that's important. Or going from conference to conference and using the technologies, using the blogging, using the stickers, using the widgets, using all the groups, take advantage of MySpace, take advantage of Facebook. Don't spend money to make your own website if you don't have to, when you could create free websites and other, websites that are letting you offer that. So
say do your homework too a little bit, whether it's a narrative or an experimental or a documentary. Two things. One, what other filmmakers have made films similar to yours, or even who do you admire? Get in touch with them. How do you do that? It sounds so random. One, IMDb Pro. It's a great way to at least get in touch with their agents or the people that are in their world. Or two, go to something like this or like the IFP conference, somewhere where perhaps they're speaking and you may have 5 minutes to glad hand them, and then you can kind of use that as an entree going forward. The second part of that would be also, what is your movie about? I mean, like in one sentence, what is it about? And then finding whether it's corporate groups or social issues groups or whomever, who all have listservs. And if you can get one or two of those folks interested and they can get the word out, it's your listserv plus some of the other filmmakers' listservs plus some of the, and that sounds pretty old school, but that networking, whether it's in a physical presence or whether it's, then and then following up online, is invaluable because you're, again, building that community and building those people both online and in person, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Go ahead.
One of the things that we're doing at Film Riot, if you do your own website and you're trying to raise your money or build your audience that way, it is very difficult because they have to just go to your website. So we're building a community and Indiegogo's building a community. So using that kind of tool, I think, is better because you're getting the people who love independent film can look through all of the different projects that are there. So that's number one. The other thing we're doing is combining the cyber promotions that we talked about, the widgets and MySpace and Facebook and all that, with the real world type of promotion. So every filmmaker on our site, we're starting off with no charge for putting your films up. We mail you a box of business cards that have your URL, filmriot.com/myterrificfilm, whatever it's called, and you hand those out to absolutely everybody you can think of. So instead of just talking to those people who you think are money people and you're trying to get money from them, just the person who pumps your gas every morning or whatever, bring them to the site. They might give you $20 or $100. You never know. They may tell somebody else, "Oh my God, this looks amazing," and so you don't know who that person is. So just make sure that you bring everybody you can think of to the site.
But I think that while building a community is incredibly important, and using these new technologies and these new sites and ideas is wonderful, and while being able to describe your work cogently in a sentence is great, I think that reinventing the wheel, especially if you're doing a feature, is not always necessary. And there are existing genres and niches that you can just transmogrify your plot and just plug right into them. And you can turn your film into a Christian film, or you can turn your film into a lesbian vampire film, or a surfing film, or an Iraq story, or whatever, and just plug in, and just you have got an instant group to market to.
But yeah, completely. By the way, I saw several people come in. Please, there's plenty of seats up here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right there, there's some seats. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, with Dismakers, it's funny because we get a lot of people doing what I did. I self-financed my film. Everything that I had talked about earlier, I did not do. I did the sort of swallow the nitroglycerin and pray, and I self-financed. But what I did was, for each part of what I made, I did a documentary film about the Turkish military coups. Because I was living in Turkey, I sort of did what a lot of filmmakers who don't have a big budget for, is you don't make a movie about a spaceship if you don't have a spaceship. If you work in a jewelry store, you make a jewelry store heist movie. So I was living in Turkey, there was a coup, so I filmed a bunch of terrorists. It was great. But what I did is I bought equipment, and then I filmed, and then I sold that on eBay, and I bought editing equipment, and I edited it, and I sold that on eBay, and after 6 years, the film's turned a profit, and that's all dandy. But what I find from Dismakers is that the filmmakers that sell the most, uncover the truth about the Iraq War, the ones that sell 50,000 copies, the ones who don't have, the ones that sell well are the ones that have plugged into existing niches, and the ones that don't are the ones who make a romantic comedy with no stars that's a really earnest film about their feelings.
And I'll just follow on that. What I've seen a lot, compared to, say, 10 years ago when we started these panels, if you're talking about independent film, the knowledge of independent film was really limited to people in the film industry. What I've seen now, which is over and over, is you're taking this bus, this Lewis Brother coaches up to Park City. Half the people here aren't even in the film industry. And that's one of the big differences, that today you can go to a medium-sized market. I mentioned Birmingham, Alabama, whatever, and people, if you plug into a niche, like what you're talking about, Brian, what you can do is get people very, very much interested in those areas. Like back there we have the filmmaker that made Neo Lounge. I saw that film in Brussels a couple months ago, and it's playing in Slamdance now. That film plugs into expats living in China today. You know, all these different niches that exist. What you can do is you can build up a great deal of interest. For example, I know a filmmaker that was interested in a very specific population, the Chaldean population, which is a very specific population that in San Diego, there's quite a bit of Chaldeans that have immigrated there. What she did is she went to the Chaldean Cultural Association and raised $20,000. She just went up to them and she goes, "I want to make a film about you." And they're like, "Oh, great, here's $20,000. I mean, it sounds so simple, but no one ever wanted to make a film about them. And they were like, "Yeah, this is our community. This is our religious community. This is our community of culture and all that. Here's a $20,000 grant." And she was like, "That's easy." It's not always that easy, but these niches do really exist. And pardon?
Is Dan Mervish still in the room?
No, I think he left.
Okay.
Tell us, Skiz.
He made a film, a musical, a few years ago called Open House, which is about people that go to houses that are for sale and do crazy stuff on the days that they're open to the public. He went around to all the real estate offices and said, I'm making a movie about real estate, and they all handed him money. You know, he raised so much of his money just from people that were like, great, we want to be involved in a movie about real estate. Who'd have thought?
About a year and a half ago, Time Magazine Person of the Year was you. YOU, you know, it was Vladimir Putin this past year, but the year before it was you. And we all know about user-generated content. We know about YouTube, but really, where is this going? I mean, it's all about getting the help of others. So long, the mantra has been DIY, do it yourself. But with all these tools, with all these communities, we're moving beyond that. We like to say at Indiegogo, it's really about DIWO, do it with others, right? Because you need to engage everybody to help you bring along your vision to the people.
Yeah, another place I've seen a lot of interesting opportunity for filmmakers is actually electronics conferences and software conferences, because the way that they're selling their products, like for example, there's the Consumer Electronics Show that happened in Las Vegas last week. What does that have to do with the film industry? Well, a few years ago, not all that much. Today, if you go to it, there's 140,000 people that attended that show, and the main thing that attracted people to booths, whether it was Panasonic, whether it was Apple, whatever it was basically film or short film clips. And as I was talking to people, one of the things that the people at the booths wanted the most was people that could do good content. And they don't have the hookup because they don't know the film community. And to them, one of the things that they welcome, I mean, it's really interesting. I was talking to a ton of different people. And by the way, there's plenty of seats up here for those of you that just came in. That what they would really love to do is to meet a filmmaker, and that's a great way to develop funding sources as well. There's more seats if you like, because in booths like that, if you go to different companies, like for example, there's small companies that are making all these type of applications, whether it's for like an iPhone or for an MP3 player or for, you know, they're selling whatever type of technologies. They want to sell it somehow visually, but that's a very good in to get a funding source. And I wanted to see, is there any questions so far from anyone, projects that you're working on or ideas that you have that we could speak about? Yeah.
I have a question that I'm honestly like really terrified to ask.
Go for it.
Because I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. It's just I would love to know if there is an answer to this. I was recently just raising financing for my first film, and me and the people that I was raising money with had a whole bunch of great ideas to try and get like anywhere from $5 to $10 to even $1,000 at a time, because it just seems so much easier than getting chunks of like $25,000. But we were working with this lawyer who said that if just under the Securities Exchange Commission, if you get more than 35 non-accredited investors investing, it's just illegal. And I was wondering, like, does anybody know about that, or is that true or not true? Or
I'll take that. It's a real concern, for sure. And it's, again, part of the way that we're setting up Film Riot is to protect you from that. The people who give you money through us anyways are not investors in your film. They're people who are giving you a donation. And therefore they don't actually, they won't make cash money off of that investment. We're not calling it an investment. What they do is we gift it to the filmmaker. Filmmaker gives back a digital copy. Everybody who invested gets a copy of the film, a download. And then through sales off of our store, we cut those people in. Again, it's a gift from the filmmaker now to those people. They get a royalty, but they can't take it out in cash. We have to really be careful about the SEC. So they can use that money that they've made, if they make money, and hopefully it's a film that does really well, and they do. They give that to other filmmakers to make more movies. They get more free films out of their next investments, or they can buy product off of the store. Again, it's all brand new, so we're hoping that we can work with other people that are doing similar things to help to try to change these laws and make it so that the threshold in dollar figures, maybe like just forget these as hard SEC rules or whatever, but that's years in the future. So for now, we're just trying to walk that dangerous line.
But that could you go.
Yeah, doing a public offering for an investment opportunity to the public is 100% illegal, according to the blue sky laws of the SEC. We're knee deep in this, but there are absolutely no for-profit investments at Indiegogo for now, and if anybody is doing it online, they will get, should we say, in trouble as it scales. That being said, on Indiegogo, it's all about passion and perks. You're contributing to Iraq for Sale not because you want return, it's because you're anti-Bush. You're contributing not because you want ROI on Batman, it's because you want to be there on the set, you want to be a character, you want to have your face become an animation, you want to get to hang out with the cast and crew, whatever it is. All of that is totally legal and totally an opportunity for you guys to get creative. For example, how many of you said, oh, I'm going to Slamdance, I'm going to Sundance, and one of your friends or family said, oh my gosh, how do you get to go there? Like, was anybody surprised that you're in? So if you got to offer that opportunity to them, say, oh, you know what, if you give me X contribution, I'll take you to Slamdance. People want to get behind the velvet rope, and that opportunity is getting there. That being said, there's a lot of sites out there that are slowly breaking down the whole SEC regulations. It's not going to happen overnight, but people are getting creative, and as time evolves, just how these blue sky laws came to fruition, they might break down, and we're here to make it happen.
But depending on how much money you're raising or that you want, I mean, all of this can be part of a complete breakfast, as they would say back in the series with cereal. It's like you want to get people contributing to your film and donating to get the VIP perks and to get all of the goodies, and not investing in it. But at times, it's just as easy. You get the same amount of time for holding up the candy stores you do for holding up the First National Bank. So if you have a budget and if you want to raise real money, and if you're friends with a lawyer or if you know somebody, you can just set up an LLC, which that doesn't cost a lot, and then you set up what's called a PPM, or a private placement memorandum.
Yep.
And then basically, in effect, you become a securities broker, and then you can sell off chunks of your film at 10, 15,000, whatever amount you want to get.
The big caveat on that is he's totally right, but then selling that off cannot be done in a public way. The first word is private. Private placement memorandum, meaning you can't put it on the internet. That's going to cause big trouble. I mean, this is just advice from the panel. Don't put a private placement memorandum on the internet offering it to anybody. Not good.
Also, if you have legal questions like that, most states, not most states, but a lot of states these days have a Lawyers for the Arts office. I'm from Maryland. We have the Maryland Lawyers for the Arts. And what they do is they give free legal advice and legal help to artists, pretty much. Filmmakers for honor. I'm on the board of directors for Maryland Lawyers for the Arts. I'm sure they're a film guy. Usually the filmmakers come to me first with a question, and I help them find the lawyer that can answer their question and help them the best. And a lot of times, people from other states who don't have Lawyers for the Arts organizations in their states will call us as well. Like we've helped out filmmakers in West Virginia because there wasn't one there. So if you ever have any legal problems or need legal advice, see if your state has that, and if not, just call Maryland's.
And to get even more complex, but to open up more opportunities for you, you don't have to pick vanilla or chocolate. You could actually create hybrid models where you can get your financing partially through a 501c3 or a fiscal sponsored model where it's for contributions and for perks. And then over here, you have an actual for-profit model where people are going to get return. And these two cannot overlap, and you have to be very creative of how you're offering these things, but it can happen, and you just need a good lawyer.
Yeah, I think the other thing, too, that I've seen a lot kind of following on this question is, at the very beginning, also know how much money you want to raise. Because oftentimes I see filmmakers who are like, well, I want to make a $500,000 film, but I can make it for $10,000. And I mean, while all that stuff is true, in the outset, if you know you want to make a $500,000 film or $1 million film, it's a completely different thing than trying to get $10,000 or $20,000. And I think to yourself, if you understand the script and if you give yourself the time, that then you can kind of get plugged into what makes sense. What Brian was saying, more traditional ways of putting together an investment for a film, or going all the way to, I'm going to do it online, I'm going to do it for $7,000, or I'm going to sell a frame at a time. Whatever it is, the main thing is know what your goal is before you go down, and also give yourself the time to do it. I mean, it sounds so simple, But what I also oftentimes is, oh, well, I'm going to run to the 501c3 because I heard about it. But by doing that, in a way, you could be wasting your time because you could have a better opportunity in front of you. And kind of what Skiz is saying also in terms of the arts organizations, it's also, some of them also, it's a good way to call them up and say, let me just discuss my project with someone that's maybe been doing this for 10 years. That can give me more specific resources in my community. And there's communities vary all over the place. I mean, there's, I mentioned Kansas City a while ago. Kansas City has something called the IFC, the Independent Filmmakers Coalition. Who would have ever known? There's several hundred members. A lot of them have made feature films. A lot of them have had shorts. They've been to Sundance, so you can talk to them and say, what I really want to do is I want to come to Slamdance 2010. This is my goal. Or I want to do something online. And you can talk to people that have been through it. And what you don't want to do is kind of get stuck with the lawyers, start paying the couple $100 an hour to realize that it's not the direction you want to go. Does IFP offer resources for filmmakers?
Absolutely.
And if you don't live in New York, is that still
absolutely?
the same?
We're a national organization. We're actually going to be launching a new form of membership for everybody that doesn't live kind of in that tri-state area. One of the things that we do, that we've been doing for the last 30 years, it has given that everybody from John Stales to Charles Burnett to all sorts of documentary filmmakers is something called the IFP Market. And what it does is particularly really brings together filmmakers with industry. I'm a big proponent of saying the smartest filmmakers I know their strengths, but also acknowledge their weaknesses. So a perfect example of, I'm a first-time filmmaker. I don't know lawyers. I don't know how to kind of proceed because I've made some great shorts, but now I want to make a $500,000 movie. And not only that, but I want to know how I get paid for the 4 years that I'm doing that by, not just temping. And so the IFP market really has a lot of different things for documentary filmmakers, for filmmakers that are looking for financiers, and people that are at the script stage as well, that are just trying to find those producers. And I would say that to you as well. Lawyers are great. They know a lot. But sometimes the people that have been in the trenches know what they're doing. And so any opportunity that you can have, your producer that you've worked with for a million years, but maybe a producer that's had a feature film under their belt, again, finding out what those films are that are similar to what you're trying to do, or scripts that what you're trying to do. It's very important. So.
In terms of your target amount, that's really a very important question you should answer for yourself. And there's a metaphor we like to say, would you ever walk into a company having never worked there and say, hi, I'm interviewing to be CEO? Mm-hmm. Probably not. That being said, what have you done before? Can you start with a $5 million movie? Have you done a $1 million movie? Have you done a $100,000 movie?
Have you had a line producer look at your script,
sure,
even if it's a friend, and break that movie down and say, legitimately, it can be made for $3 million, but you can make. It's not a guessing game. It's a very exacting,
And a perfect example is like we talked before, Christopher Nolan, 11,000, 2 million, 20 million, Batman franchise.
Yeah, and for example, there's a guy named Josh Marston that was a semi-finalist in the Slamdance screenwriting competition several years ago. He wrote a script called Maria Full of Grace. And what he did was he found a producer in New York, a guy named Paul Mazzei, whose work that he liked.
That went through IFP.
He liked Paul. And what they did is their alternative funding method was, let's get the script to where we want it. We know that the script has a lot of very different challenges, including that it's a Spanish language film made in the United States. So what they did was they actually, instead of going to the internet and all that, they went to HBO. And they said, well, this is an HBO film, but we also did a deal that if it did good at Sundance, that it could have a theatrical window. So what they did is they did an alternative funding method using traditional ways, that they weren't, instead of going online, what they said is, and we're going to go through a place that has the ability to believe in a film, and HBO really took a big leap, funding for several $1 million a film that was shot in Spanish with subtitles, that was an American production, and the film went on to do very well. But the thing about, one of the things that I really want to highlight is, Josh Marston was a writer. He directed Maria Full of Grace, and he went on, and he's doing other films now as well. This is the key. He found a producer whose work he liked, and he let the producer, Paul Mazzei, and the other folks involved, deal with the lawyer and all that stuff, because Paul had made 10 films before. He's been here a bunch of times. in Park City, and he was, you know what, I'm a filmmaker, I'm going to let a producer do what a producer does. And I think that's also something as a filmmaker to know that sometimes if you try to do everything, it'll backfire on you as well.
And that's true of the technology too. I mean,
Yeah.
some people are naturally gifted and they can produce and they can do, the hair and makeup, and they can also build a website, and that's wonderful. But, there's very few people like that, and acknowledging that and saying, you know what, I want to spend the next 2 years developing my film, casting my film, doing the creative stuff, and now what do I need? What do I need to get it off the ground? And then exactly what you're saying, whether it's producers or whether it's lawyers or whether it's, talking to sales agents or other organizations and figuring out, all right, who can fill those gaps so I can do what I want to do and not go broke and not hate the filmmaking process 3 months in.
Do you have any questions at all? You must have some questions. Okay, let me just keep going. I want to ask, I had a question specific to, now I really want to work with a company like one of these online companies that we're talking about today. What is the best strategy to do it? When do I start promoting my film? When do I start selling my film? How do I work with you?
Well, with us, I suggest working really early. It's possible to put up even before a script is written or anything like that. And what you're doing is you're getting input from people right away, and you might end up changing the way it is, rewriting your script, etc., based on some input that you're getting from your fans. If you want to work that way, if you want to work where you're the person in control, of course, then you wait a while and you go up once you're ready and you're really this is where we're going. So it depends on yourself, but why not throw it out there early? I think a lot of the protectionist approach that the big studios have, where it's all secret hush hush, that's not the world that we're living in anymore. The idea is it's the execution that's the key thing. And so what you're doing is you're selling yourself as the executor of that idea.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to probably mimic a lot what was just said. At Indiegogo, you could post before you even have the idea written completely down, all the way to having the film completely in a can and you just need help on promotion. We would advise to try to build that community as early as possible and have them come along with you. In terms of any concerns you might have, I'm not going to put up my script because somebody's going to steal my script. I don't want to put up any information because somebody will make that exact same movie. All these concerns live in the real world as well, and online that'll be the same, but it's up to you to choose whether you want to engage your community or you want to try to hide it and do it yourself. Simple metaphors, if you're doing online dating, if you have a picture, you're probably going to get more traction, right? So you need to open up a little bit to get people to come in, and that's up to you to figure out how you want to manage that.
What type of agreement do I lose any? For example, even forget about the script. Like, let's say I have a concept. I want to make XYZ film, and I put it up on one of your sites, right? I work with you. A, what type of agreement is involved? And B, am I giving up any type of copyright or any type of intellectual property ownership?
We actually are stepping away from that completely because we want the artist to own it 100%. So we take no ownership whatsoever. And when you make the movie, it's yours to distribute how you want. If you know how you're going to distribute it, it's only going to add to your value proposition on your project profile. But we actually don't want to interfere or take sides. So we're actually the marketplace, agnostic of which film it is, whether it's about transgender, whether it's about Iraq, whether it's about horror. There's niche films, and there's people that want to see them made, and we want to bring them together.
And with Film Riot, we have one agreement beyond that, I think, but I see it as a positive, not a negative, and that's that if you raise your money with Film Riot, that you agree to put it on the store, that we'll have an online store, which we don't have yet. The agreement is it's a 60-40 split, so Film Riot takes 40, filmmakers take 60, and then it's from sales on the store that you get to reward the people who have supported you. You own your film 100%. When it goes on the store is up to you. If you want to hold back on the film while you're looking for other distributors and you're doing the festivals and all that sort of thing, you don't want to have it on an online store yet, no problem. Once you're ready, then you put it on the store. And it's a matter of trust. You've already built up a fan base on Film Riot. I trust that when you're ready, you're going to put it on the store because you want to reward those people. Again, we don't have, it's no hard and fast rule. We want to be international. So the types of contracts and stuff that are going to make it really sticky or whatever, we've gotten rid of that, and it's a trust-based system.
Yeah. I wanted to see, Skiz, just one question from working in Maryland. Have you seen any other approaches that people have taken to alternative funding methods?
Yeah, but again, it's kind of small.
That's
budgets.
good. That's good.
Yeah, let's see, I mentioned medical testing.
Right.
I actually at one point was collecting Pepsi points off of Pepsi bottles to exchange for the prizes so that I could then sell those and devote that to the film. But that's back when I needed like a few $100 to buy film and get it processed. So we're probably not talking about anything like that here. Actually, I can't really think of an answer to your question, but I have a question for these guys, which is, can the same filmmaker put their film on both websites, or do you have to pick one or the other?
We don't have any problem with that because we expect that you're not going to raise 100% of your money from Film Riot. If you do, that's cool. But people are always they're going to try to go to your rich uncle or whatever and build an audience and raise part of your money from us. So if happens that part of your money comes from whatever other websites or whatever, that's cool.
Not only do we not have exclusive, we actually promote that you use every possible site to get your promotion out there. MySpace, Film Riot, Facebook, YouTube channels, your own blog, your own website, whatever it is. The only thing that we do on Indiegogo is we actually want to try to consolidate all that for you so you can make all those connections on our site.
We have just another moment before we wrap. Any kind of concluding ideas or advice or anything for
webisodes? You may only have, $2,000 that you got from your Nana, but if you put together some kind of interesting webisode that even just shows your talent, it could be, peripherally what you're trying to do, but then people kind of understand not only that you can make something of your cat dancing on a TV, but you really can show what your talents are and what your voice is in a very quick package. And there's so many people these days that want to show it, like we were saying earlier, on an iPhone, on different devices, and they're very hungry for it. I know, in particular, iTunes is always looking for content, and they're really looking for content that then they can work with the filmmaker at the beginning stage on their script, using their software to do your post the whole way through. So anything that you can do, Spout is a good one to check out. We mentioned Joe Swanberg earlier. He has a new series that's coming out called Butter Knife. He also does something called Young American Bodies. So seeing what those are and seeing that those are different than the dancing cat videos, but the webisodes are a good way to not only promote yourself but make some money.
Yeah, and I think also I'd really encourage, you had the question about the attorney and some other questions. Use the resources out there to find out what the best way to develop your film is, because once you're going down the road and it's much harder than to research it early. Let me just give you an overview of what you can expect the rest of this week. So we're going to do fireside chats every day between now and Wednesday. They're going to be in this room from 1 to 2. They're free. Please bring anyone you want along. Let me go through what the topics are going to be the next couple days. So tomorrow, we're going to specifically focus on building online communities. So we're going to talk, for example, one of the folks here tomorrow is going to be from YouTube. We're going to have someone from South by Southwest. It's sponsored by a company called Our Stage. It's really going to be very, very interesting, and specifically focusing on, for example, if you're going to use something like Facebook or YouTube, how you do that. On Monday, we're going to talk about new technologies and online distribution. So again, you've got your film made, different ways of distributing it, and we're really kind of focusing on a lot of different technologies this year, specifically not only in terms of fundraising, but all the way through to distribution. And we're going to have various people on that, including attorneys, the head of B-Side that does a lot of the website work for Slamdance and others. On Tuesday, we're going to have the focus is going to be on screenwriting. We're going to have folks from the Slamdance screenwriting competition. We're going to have people from the Writers Guild of America, and it's going to be a variety of writers just focusing on screenwriting that day. And then on Wednesday, we're going to focus on Panasonic is sponsoring that chat, and we're going to focus on the HVX 200, which you mentioned, and it's really going to be talking about different ways that you can use production technology. We're going to have a bunch of DPs on it talking about how you can use affordable production technology for independent filmmakers. So it's between now and Wednesday. Invite everyone. Before we wrap, I really want to thank Film Riot for putting this together and for helping us, and thank all the panelists. And if you go to the back, there's some T-shirts, and thank you for coming. Hope to see you soon.